We all want to live younger, longer, and better, right? And that's what today's guest is all about, Kristen Coffield.
She is the founder of the Culinary Cure, and she's going to give us some ways that we can all implement into our habits and routines to live younger, better, and longer. Who doesn't want that?
So we're excited to bring you Kristen, and here we go. Hey, Kristen, good morning. Thank you so much for joining Jody and I today. We're so honored to have you with us on our YouTube channel.
Well, I'm excited to be here, and we've had several conversations that have led us to actually meeting in person. So this is terrific.
It is terrific. And before we get into the meat of what we're going to talk about today, I was hoping you would go through your story because it's relatable, powerful, and the way you tell it, I think, will resonate with a lot of our viewers.
I always like to say my story is not unique. My story is a little bit of every woman's story. And that's kind of a big lead into, hey, all kinds of shit happened to me. And I always thought that I lived a pretty charmed life. I grew up in a small town outside of New York. I dated a great guy. I went to a good college. We got married. We lived in a good neighborhood. We had 3 kids. We were doing the private school. I was a pillar of the community. And everything was fine until it wasn't. And when I say my story is a little bit of every woman's story, sometimes life just doesn't turn out the way we thought it would. And it's really, I think all good marriages are about aligned vision for what your life is going to look like, but we don't always talk about that. And I'll just say I'm still married to the same guy. But a lot of things happened. My mother was diagnosed with breast cancer. My father with Alzheimer's. I was having, my marriage was really struggling. I had some incidents with my daughters that were really challenging for them and for us. And then I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer. So got my looks. I wasn't shanked in prison. This is where my thyroid is removed. And any one of those things would be enough to sink a ship, right?
Right.
But when I had like this 10 years, it was like a tsunami of overwhelming personal events. And this came in my mid 50s. And I was just getting around that point where that last kid's going off to college. And all of a sudden there's all this space in your life to take a good look at what's going on around you.
Right.
And I like to say the rope was long. Okay. So the rope was really long. And then one day I was like, oh my God, there's no more rope.
Yeah.
I am like hanging and there is no more rope.
Right.
And so when you're out of rope, there's 2 things you can do. You can let go of the rope or
free fall.
Yeah, free fall and just hope you land okay. Or you can actually start pulling yourself back up. And that's what I decided to do. So I woke up one day and I was like, not today, Satan. I'm going to do things differently. So I couldn't control all these things. I couldn't control my mom's cancer, my dad's Alzheimer, or our financial problems or the marriage stuff. But I could control one thing. I could control what was on the end of my fork. So that's where I started. In that one day, I just woke up and I'm like, okay, I'm just going to start eating only foods that support me looking and feeling better. So I'm 63 and I have spent the last decade absolutely focusing on things that help me feel better, be better, have more energy. Look, if you get all that right, the way you look automatically just improves.
Right. There's so
I
much power in that, I have a, similar story with a mom that was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer, never sick a day in her life. And traumatic, my company was merged and purchased, traumatic. My girls were off to school, our boys had already gone. but it is empowering. And I think it's important for our viewers to hear that word from you, because it is empowering to nestle down to those things you can control and then support yourself in that. And I think that's where there's a break sometime, where, maybe you have friends, or maybe it was you even at a time where you feel you're at the end of the rope and you feel like there's no power.
Right.
But you found, power in that, which I think is really important.
What was the inspiration with the food and the fork and the nutrition? Well,
my background is actually culinary. So
okay.
My mom had a shop in the town we grew up in, little town called Bronxville, New York. My mom was a divorced single lady back in the 60s, so that wasn't terribly cool. And she had a shop in town, and I worked for her every year. She had that shop until I was about 16, and she and I started butting heads a little. And another woman whose husband had just died of pancreatic cancer had opened a catering business in town called A La Carte. And my mom and I were butting heads, and she said, "You know what, Kristen, I think it's time for you to work for somebody else besides your mama." So I started working at A La Carte, and I learned from the ground up. It was like being in a French kitchen. There I was 16, and I'm like peeling vegetables for crudités, and I'm supporting the chefs in the kitchen with what they need done. So I started my culinary journey when I was in my teens, and then it just progressed. I had a catering company in Manhattan when I was going through Columbia University. When we moved to Washington, I started a political fundraising catering company. So I did that for a decade. And
wow, that's great.
Yeah. And then I decided I was really tired of feeding people fried jalapeno poppers. And
I'm going to feed you and kill you at the same time.
Right. That's really what people want at those cocktail parties, quite honestly. They're like, "Don't you have anything fried?" I'm like, "Oh, here's a crudité, people."
Yeah. Or the pigs in a blanket would be Mark's choice.
And I know we have to have another follow-up call, because my family business was in Bronxville for 4 generations. So I know we chatted about that on the phone real quick, but I know we know a lot of the same people. So
right.
Have that
I know where that building
was.
Connection. I know where your family's offices were. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, listen, we would love to hear from you. We talked about some best steps that people can take, because Jody and I talk a lot about nutrition and wellness, and it's mental wellness and relationships and spouse partner relationship, but nutrition and exercise are woven in there. We're not experts in that, but we do the best we can. And we bring people on like yourself to really go deep in the topic to help our followers really make some positive movements any time of their life. But clearly, as we get older and we enter retirement, we have more time, and it's easy to pick up bad habits. And we want to talk about—
But it's easy to pick up good habits,
well,
too.
we want to talk about some good habits that we all can pick up. So we're hoping all of us will learn today from you. So why don't you dive into where we can start, or what the first step might be? And look at you. You ready?
You ready? We are so ready. Everybody can do this. And I'm not going to tell you anything that's not basically free. So everybody can do these things. And what you said about habits, that is really the key. 40% or more of what we do every day is mindless repetition. We don't think, we just do.
Right.
And that starts the minute we wake up in the morning. And we all know that first hour of each day, that is gold. That is where you set your intentions. That's where your productivity, ignites. So what we do in that first hour sets the tone for the whole day. And I have one thing that all of my programs are built on, and that's hydration.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And as we age, our sense of thirst actually diminishes. So you have to think of hydration, sleep, exercise, mindfulness. These are all practices. So they're not just habits, they're practices. And when it's a practice, I love this is so encouraging. If it's a practice, you can improve on it.
Right.
So with hydration, I always love to say, Tom Brady and I are going to tell you to do the exact same thing. When you get up in the morning, the first beverage of each day should be warm or room temperature water, boosted with electrolytes, I like to add the juice of half a lemon. Actually, my water has so many things in it, but you can just start with lemon juice and electrolyte drops. And people are like, oh, why lemon juice? Why electrolyte drops? Here's the bottom line. Our water is processed. It's been through a municipal processing plant. It's been treated with chemicals, and it doesn't have any of the live things in it that we humans are designed to get in our water. So water is an essential nutrient. Our bodies can't make water. We have to get it from an outside source. And that can be from our food, like fruits and vegetables. It can be from our beverages, but that's it, people. We've got to get our water from an outside source. So start each day, and this is where Tom Brady and I differ a little bit. He starts with 24 ounces of water. I start with 12. But I figure if Tom Brady is promoting hydration, he's got the best coaches in the world. So I bought my husband Tom Brady's book and I said, hey, honey, would you take a look at the chapter on hydration? I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything. And afterwards, after he read it, I said, well, what did you think? And he goes, you could have written that chapter.
Right.
That's how important hydration is. We've got to start with hydration. And everybody who's got older parents knows this. That's one of the big concerns for seniors is dehydration. My grandmother, we'd always say, little Grammy, did you have enough water today? And she'd say, oh, yes, dear. I had 8 glasses of water. And she literally had like a little juice glass, shot glass, right?
Right.
So I'm going to break it down for you because this is the first and most important tip that everybody can do starting today. If it's a little later in the day and you're watching this, doesn't matter. Go get yourself 8 to 10 ounces of water. If you don't have electrolyte drops, go ahead and put a little pinch of Himalayan pink sea salt or the juice of half a lemon in there. And you're going to drink that, but I don't want you to chug it. So what I want people to do is understand this is how hydration works. If you drink it all at once, it's going to go through you. So 8 to 10 ounces an hour for 8 to 10 hours a day will get you to your 80 to 100 ounces of water, which is your goal. You may start lower than that, but you want to take 8 to 10 sips an hour. A sip is about an ounce. And that could be water. It could be herbal tea. And then you're going to get the rest of your water from your fruits and vegetables, because step number 2, a largely plant-based diet. So
we both have a naturopath doctor who tells us we need to eat 7 to 8 cups of vegetables a day. I don't know what your number is, but that's an enormous amount of vegetables. If you don't have any at breakfast, that's a big lunch and a big dinner of vegetables.
Right.
Well, I do like to encourage people to actually look at breakfast a little differently. The traditional breakfast foods, breakfast is the most sugary meal of the day for Americans. It's filled with refined carbohydrates, added sugars, milk sugars, just too much going on there. So think of breakfast as just another meal, but it's the most important meal. Whatever your first meal of the day is your most important meal. And we're eating wrong. So we need to flip so that breakfast is our bigger meal, and it's got the trifecta of good health: fiber, fat, and protein.
Right.
So we need to get all of those things in to get our brain going, to get our energy production up, to get our gut functioning properly, because we're not getting enough fiber in our diets either. So when you eat just plain old toast and a yogurt, a strawberry yogurt, and then you have a cup of coffee, and maybe you grab a bagel on the way to work, or maybe you have a bowl of granola, that's really what we should be having is half an avocado, a scoop of fermented cabbage, one of those beautiful slaws you can buy that are fermented, maybe some nuts. Eggs are great, but you got to get that fiber, fat, and protein. So step back from what you think breakfast looks like, and you can go to the Culinary Cure, my website. All of these recipes, I've got over 200 recipes to help people live younger, better, and longer.
My breakfast tends to be but 2 days a week I fast, but intermittent fast. But all the other days I have oatmeal, a cup of oatmeal, nuts, and fresh berries on top of it. And that's what I have for breakfast. I don't know if I need to add anything to that, Look at the face I'm getting.
Well, is that steel cut oats?
No,
It's
Quaker oats.
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
What is steel
If
cut?
you're gonna go the oatmeal route, Quaker oats are those flat little oats that are processed. So
Okay.
all the good fiber is gone. You need to look at steel cut oats. They
Okay.
take longer to cook, but you can cook a batch of them early in the week and then just reheat them with a little nut milk in your microwave or in a pan.
a good
And one of my best hacks for oatmeal, because a lot of people love oatmeal, is to add pomegranate seeds.
oh,
Okay.
So instead of maple syrup or whatever, you could stir some pomegranate seeds, which are pretty readily available. They're a superfood. They're going to give you all kinds of great, they're bright red. So the more bright things are, that means the more phytochemicals and nutrients are in them. So you could stir that into your oatmeal, put some walnuts on top, maybe sprinkle a little ground raw flaxseed to boost that a little bit more. And that would be a boosted oatmeal for you.
Okay.
How do you feel about like plant-based pea protein shakes in the morning with water, ice?
Well, so here's the problem. When a plant-based pea protein can be very beneficial, but I'd kind of rather see people taking complete amino acids and maybe some marine collagen as a different way of getting that additional protein. So amino acids and a complete amino acid, again, amino acids, the body can produce some of them, but not all of them, depending on what your diet is. So amino acids are the building blocks of protein. And we want to get those because protein is the building blocks of muscles and bones and all of that good stuff. So I would kind of veer towards marine collagen and a complete amino acid as a supplement. Some people struggle with pea protein. It can be very hard to digest, actually. And I sort of step back from shakes a little bit because there's so much pleasure in eating.
Yeah.
And chewing and feeling the textures and the different flavors. And, a protein shake can have a place if you're just really pressed for time and maybe you need to grab and go. But to get back to something very interesting that you said, Mark, which was I eat oatmeal 3 mornings a week. I want to talk about selective nutrition, because this is a huge topic that gets overlooked and people don't even realize they're doing it. So when I coach private clients at the Culinary Cure, the first thing I have them do is keep a food journal. And they have to write down what they're eating, what they're doing, what time, how much water, when they're getting exercise. And it's really a diagnostic tool. So I can kind of see what their day looks like. And then when they tell me they're having shitty sleep or, they have no energy in the afternoon, I can look back and we can deconstruct it and reconstruct it to serve them. But what people do that I see all the time is they go, oh, well, Kristen, we eat really well. And so, I don't know what you're going to find in this food journal. Well, what I find is that people are selecting their nutrients and they've narrowed it down to eating the same foods over and over and over again.
We do that.
Yeah. So it's salmon and chicken and broccoli and blueberries and oatmeal. And I love to use that as a launching point for a conversation about nutrition and what is it we're really buying when we go to the grocery store.
The same stuff because it's easier. We know it.
You know it.
Honestly, yeah.
But you're buying, now you've narrowed down your nutrients. You're only getting these nutrients.
Yeah. Right.
And as humans, the way we were designed was to eat seasonally, locally, and we're supposed to gorge ourselves on blueberries when they're in season. And then we're supposed to move into the fall things and start eating apples and pears and winter squash. And when we shop at the local farmers market, we're getting more nutrients for our consumer dollars. But when you're buying blueberries in January and they came from South America and they are put in those little clamshells and they had to travel and be stored, and then the grocery store got them and they were sitting in the back. And over time, food loses its nutritional value. So when you eat food that's fresher, that's grown local, you're supporting your local farmers, you're getting more nutrients for your dollars, because that's what we're buying. We're buying nutrition. That's the bottom line. We're buying nutrients. So you could spend $100 and get a shopping cart with 0 nutrients, or you could spend $100 and get a packed grocery bag packed with nutrients.
Wow. How do people, I'm listening to you, the water's easy. We have a very good morning routine. I don't do water, I do coffee. I'm putting the water back in, and we did a YouTube episode on that.
You can have coffee, but you got to have your water first.
Water
first. How do we get, I know we talked about habits, and maybe you're going to get there, but how do we get people to move from where they are incrementally to where they should be to be better? Is it baby steps? Is it taking a look at everything and then tearing it apart? If people are watching this and they're going, I don't know where to start, water's one thing, right? For sure.
Well, they can download, it's going to be in the show notes. They're going to have my Healthy Habits 101, which is a guide, and they can use that. I don't like to overwhelm people. Right. We talked about, 10 things people can do. Well, each one of these steps has kind of got like 10 little things in each step. Yeah. And when we talk about hydration, and the reason it is so much the foundation for every other wellness habit and for living younger, longer, and better and having more energy, is because when we're properly hydrated, now I'm just going to go back and go over this again. It takes 2 weeks to become fully hydrated.
Really?
So if you start today and you're going to drink 8 to 10 ounces an hour for 8 to 10 hours a day, you do that for 2 weeks, and then you will be fully hydrated. So
will you feel different?
You will feel different. And this is where people notice it the most. Their food cravings go away because now they're properly hydrated. If you're even a little dehydrated, it affects your ability to make decisions. So you don't know if your body's signaling you to eat or drink. And very often people are like, oh, I have got to get like a chocolate chip cookie or a bag of chips or whatever. So we have to get you hydrated first. That's the first step. Okay. Why do you have to have water as the first beverage of each day?
Because you've been without it mostly through the night, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So in order for your body to do what it's supposed to do when you're asleep, so you're supposed to be in that deep sleep. So all of your major organs, including your brain, can go through a detoxification process and get rid of all the metabolic waste that it's created for your normal bodily functions during the day. So you're in a fast when you're sleeping. And when you wake up, the first thing you want to do is end that fast by rehydrating. And rehydration does a couple of things. But our lymphatic system, which is located between our skin and our muscles, is the trash can of the body. And that's where all that metabolic waste landed when you were in that deep restorative rest. It all ends up in your lymphatic system. So the first thing we want to do is help take the trash out. And because the lymphatic system can't move itself, it requires hydration and movement to help get rid of all that waste.
That's great.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, it's funny. I do hot yoga in the morning at 5:30 in the morning. So I get up and I drink I don't know if it's 10 ounces, it might be 8 ounces of water. Mm-hmm. And then I take a couple of sips of coffee just to wake myself up before I head over. And I do yoga next to an older gentleman, and he never drinks water during these hot classes at all. And I said to him one day, how can that be? I mean, I'm, drinking water during the class while we're still doing movement. And he said, Jody, it doesn't help you.
Right.
So you're, great. I'm glad you're drinking your water. It's good for you. But he said, I get up at 4 and I start with my water at 4 and I do 24 ounces before I get here. And I don't need water during class, so similar concept, I always thought like, God, how does he do it? But,
because he's not thirsty, right? Because he's properly hydrated.
Yeah.
And so my husband and I do hot yoga 2 mornings a week. And And that is, I get up at 4:10, and I drink my 12 ounces of, I have these clear glass mugs, and I make my lemon water the night before so that I can just put on my bathrobe and walk into the kitchen and warm it up. And then I drink it out of a glass straw, because the lemon is acidic. It goes in acidic, but it turns alkaline in the body. But I don't want the acidity on my
Your
teeth.
teeth.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. So hydration, definitely. Food selection is a big one. And I love this idea of eating for the seasons.
Yeah, I do too.
I'd never heard that before. And I love that. And that will open up a lot more color, I think, on our plates, which I know through looking through, your book and your website, colorful on your plate is good.
Yeah.
Yeah, your book is great, by
That
the
doesn't
way.
mean chocolate chip cookies.
No,
made on
but,
the plate.
and your book was great. That really had me rethink all of the nuts and things that I put on my oatmeal, because you cover a whole wide range. And I meant to have it here to show everybody, but that also being the
Yeah.
It's all right. I've got it here.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. How
Yeah,
healthy
that's
people
such a
eat.
great book. It's like little encyclopedia, and it
Yeah.
just gives you a lot of facts, and then
A lot of great tips.
how to shop differently. So that's helpful.
Well, it's
But
like a primer. It's like anybody can get something out of looking at it. It's
Right.
100 pages, but it's 350 footnotes, right? And so let's go back to the eating a little bit, because people, now that we've talked about, try to eat seasonal, try to eat local, not just because you've heard people say it, eat the rainbow, eat seasonal, eat local, but because you're going to get more money, more value for your money when you shop
it's less
local.
expensive when it's in season. Yeah.
It's not. I mean, my husband goes, "Oh my God, it's so expensive to shop at the farmer's market." I said, "No, actually, it's not, because we spent about the same amount. We had 2 really big bags, but what we got had more nutrients in it, so we got more for our money." So a little tip to help people make better food choices is, if it wasn't around when your great grandparents were kids, don't eat it. If you're looking at a label and you're like, "I wonder what this is," then just don't buy that thing. There should really only be, 6, 7, 8 maybe ingredients in anything. Otherwise, it's highly processed. And we really want to get back to eating foods that are as close to their original state as possible. More whole foods, less processed foods. And when we eat the way our great grandparents ate, people didn't waste anything. We have turned into the most wasteful people. Americans throw out a huge percentage of all the food they buy each week. The joke is, "Oh, buy a bag of spring mix, so at the end of the week you can toss it out because you never opened it because it's yucky, because that lettuce that comes, everything's in plastic, right? So make your own salad mix. Go to the farmer's market, buy great lettuces, buy sprouts. Make your, excuse me. You're like, "Why is your water red?"
Wait, she's cheating. That's cranberry juice.
Yeah.
What that is tart cherry juice, which helps with inflammation. And if you know anybody that struggles with gout, dark cherry juice, unsweetened, can be added to water, and it helps bring that inflammation down.
So you take it proactively just because it's good?
I have a friend who stayed in my house and left me a bottle of it. And I'm like, "Oh, this is great." So I did a little further research, and I was like, "Yeah, this will be great." I developed bone spurs in my heels this year. And so from that, I got an inflamed Achilles tendon. So I'm doing everything I can to bring inflammation down. But back to the eating. Let's just encourage everybody, because now we just jumped into inflammation, which is a huge deal. We want to dial down inflammation. So we were talking about avoiding foods with artificial ingredients. So just because there are chemicals in food doesn't mean chemicals are food. And the body doesn't know what to do with things we consume that are not nutrients. So what happens when you're putting that Splenda in your coffee is you are putting chemicals into your body that it was never designed to process. And now you're contributing to that IgG low level inflammation. And that IgG low level inflammation is the most dangerous inflammation because we don't know we have it.
Huh.
Oh,
And we're walking around feeling kind of okay, maybe not like we did when we were 25, but we think because we're older, maybe crappy is our new normal. But when we unwind that a bit and we start to look at the artificial ingredients in our food, in our personal care products, what we clean our home with, all of those things end up in our bodies.
right.
So
I
even
didn't think of the personal care products as
neither.
much. I mean,
Lotions, you mean things
we're
like
pretty
that,
good
or
at reading labels on things we ingest.
Yeah.
But topically, I haven't really thought of that as much. But that's something we need to start to pay attention
I'm
to.
sorry. I am choking. We're going to have to edit this out.
Yeah.
Yeah, like your deodorant, that's a big one.
Right.
So we should be looking at deodorant, toothpaste, mouthwash, moisturizer.
So how do you
anything.
find those brands that don't have the chemicals in it? Or is there an area in the drugstore where it's natural? Like what's the one up in Vermont? Oh, I can't even
Native?
think. I don't even know. I mean, how do you find these deodorants and
Right.
mouthwashes and toothpaste?
Well, I love the Environmental Working Group. They're a consumer advocacy group here in Washington, D.C., and they're the ones that put out the Dirty Dozen list every year of the vegetables that fruits and vegetables you should always buy organic. The Clean 15, they have a whole list of companies that make clean personal care products. As far as cleaning your home, there's Method, there's Mrs. Meyer's. I have on my website some recipes you can make your own.
Okay, we'll have to do that.
Yeah. That'd be
We'll have to get that link for that site in Washington. What was it called again?
The Environmental Working Group, EWG.
Great, we'll have to check that out.
Yeah, definitely.
What about protein? How do we how do we fit protein into our diet?
Yeah, and we need more protein as we get older.
Right.
A lot of people are afraid of eggs. I happen to love eggs, but you need to buy the best eggs you can get. Again, if you can buy your eggs at the local farmers market and they have no hormones, no antibiotics, they were, allowed to run free, you always want to look for the little seal that says certified humane. That's kind of the gold standard. So eggs are a great way. We talked earlier about incorporating complete amino acids and perhaps some marine collagen. I happen to like marine collagen better than some of the other collagen because people don't really know what collagen powder is. And it really comes from mostly from cows, and it's from bones and sinew, and they cook it all down and dry it out, and it's a powder. So I prefer marine collagen that is also got some seaweed, as well as the collagen is from salmon. So that's just kind of good to know, but meat is okay. So people always say, well, how much meat should I eat? Well, however big you are, a portion of protein, meat, chicken, fish, whatever, is about the size of a circle drawn on your fist.
Okay.
And we do need protein, but we also can incorporate plant-based proteins. So those combinations that have been used, beans and rice, remember from high school science, there are combinations you can put together that create a complete protein. So it's worth exploring that if you're not a meat eater. And then we need to supplement a little bit too. So we can supplement with the B vitamins, with the fish oil, the D3, stuff like that. So we need to make sure our supplements are filling any gaps in our diet, because that D3 helps us process all of the other things. D3 is a hormone. And so all these things work together. And the whole idea to live younger, longer, and better is to kind of start with the basics. Start with the hydration, because when you're fully hydrated, you're going to make better food choices. You're going to sleep better. Sleep is essential because that's when all these metabolic processes happen. That's when our memories are created. That's when our body restores itself. So now we're hydrated, so we're sleeping better, and we have more energy, and we're making better food choices. And we're excited to go to the farmer's market and buy a whole bunch of fruits and vegetables that we've never even tried before, and just be adventurous. And our stress level is going down now because we're getting the right nutrients and we're getting rid of those chemicals that create that low level IgG inflammation that's linked to every single disease you don't want to have. It's linked to the cancers, the neurological decline, the heart disease, all of those things that take us down slowly, and we don't even know it's happening until it's almost too late.
It's funny. A lot of our clients, our one-on-one clients, and some of our folks in Facebook or YouTube will say, okay, I'm doing it. I'm trying. So what's something I can eat in the gap? Like what's
snacks, you mean?
Yeah, like a snack. Like what's a good snack gap that I'm not going to feel terrible about later or beat myself up or, kind of just go off the rails and be like, okay, I've just had Fritos or something.
I love Fritos.
I saw you looking at
Mark loves a Frito now and then. But
I do too.
Yeah, but what are the things, and so talking about things in plastic, I'm like, well, I would do, baby carrots and hummus, but they do come out of a bag, right? So I need to get better. We need to get better at maybe finding carrots and
fresh carrots,
and cutting them up,
right?
Something.
Well, a little planning goes a long way for a week of healthy eating, always. So, my husband and I take Sunday. I usually get, 5 nights starting with Sunday, get kind of our food for the week planned. And the key is to shop for meals, not buy food. And most people just buy food. They're like, oh, this looks good, or we always have this. And so they buy the same things. And then if you're hungry and you're at the grocery store, you're going to buy a bunch of things you didn't intend to buy. But to talk about snacks, let's just backtrack a little bit and talk about the importance of understanding how we need to be eating so that we don't find ourselves having those food cravings. So the number one thing is hydration, because that's going to minimize those food cravings. And now we're getting better sleep. So that's going to minimize those food cravings. The other thing is we need to eat more calories in the first part of the day when we need energy, when we need fuel. So eating a big meal at the end of the day, it's not helping you because your body's trying to, down regulate and get ready for sleep. And now you're saying, now you've got to digest this big meal that I just ate. So you want to front load your day with fiber, fat, and protein. You want to eat enough calories in the morning that they get you through, right? Until you have in whatever time that is. Some people do intermittent fasting. Maybe your first meal is at 11. That's fine. Fiber, fat, and protein. And then lunch is a big challenge for a lot of people because a lot of carbohydrates tend to slide into the lunch picture. I love avocados. I love nuts. As I said, at the Culinary Cure, I've got a lot of suggestions and recipes for ways to get really creative about, you can use collard greens and make a roll up. You should be having some protein at lunch, whether that's tuna fish or some leftover chicken from the night before, or maybe some beans and rice or some hummus, whatever it is, you want to get that protein. And then your dinner. So eat breakfast like a king, lunch like a prince, dinner like a pauper. And then at dinner time, you really that's a social eating time for a lot of people.
Right.
So that's when you can get a lot of those vegetables, right? You can get a lot of those, a nice big salad, maybe a baked sweet potato. Go ahead, put the Kerrygold butter on your sweet potato. There's 5 healthy fats. There's avocado oil, there's olive oil, there's coconut oil, there's butter from grass-fed cows, and there's lard from grass-fed animals. Those are kind of the 5 oils that we should be eating. Wow. And if anybody watching this has vegetable oil in their cabinet, get rid of it.
Yeah.
Gotta go.
How about canola oil? No good either?
No. What is the canola plant?
I don't know.
So these
I just know when you read a recipe and it says vegetable oil, canola oil, we do have avocado oil and we have all the other ones. But somehow they creep into recipes. I guess you just don't use it.
Well, because people are just you just swap it out for a different oil. But those vegetable oils tend to be made from things that were not naturally oily. So like grapeseed oil, I'm sorry, grapeseed oil, really? But what they did was they're like, hey, we've got all these leftover seeds. I wonder what we can do with them from the grape juice, the grape jelly. So there's a 10-step process that includes bleach and chemicals to make these vegetable oils. Soybeans are not naturally oily, so it's just the 5: avocado, coconut, olive, butter, and lard from grass-fed animals.
Got it.
That's great.
That's a good tip.
This has been wonderful. I'd like to ask you, because you have this on your website, and we talked about perhaps doing one together, but your detox program, how important is it for people to do that once in their life, or every year, or every 6 months? Talk a little bit about that. Well, I don't know if you've done it. I've never done it.
Yeah.
But tell us how that works and how important that is. And is that a good place to start, where you get a clean slate? I'm going to detox, and then when I'm done, or during the process, I'm going to change my breakfast, lunch, and dinner to how you talk about.
Well, we started this whole conversation with habits.
Right.
And swapping habits that don't serve us for habits that do serve us, gaming up our habits. So we're drinking liquids anyway. Now we know we need to drink more water. We're eating food anyway. Now we need to, eat more plants and vegetables. So what we want to do is just create these habits. And habits are hard to build. Sometimes we know it's between knowing and doing where things fall apart. And, my stepdad at 89 is a perfect example. He will give lip service to anything because he knows so much. He actually went out to dinner with us the other day and ordered a hamburger, which my husband and I looked at each other. We're like, he's not going to be able to, he's got Parkinson's. How's he going to eat that hamburger? And he actually turned to us and said, I haven't had a hamburger in 20 years. And my husband goes, didn't we feed him? Didn't he have a hamburger at our house, like a month ago? So between knowing and doing, how do we make these habits stick? So I do my 21-day detox and reset 2 to 3 times a year. I've got one coming up at the end of September, because a lot of people find, and you guys said to me, when we retired, every night was Saturday night.
Yeah.
There was wine every night. We
Yeah.
were off our routine. We started to we traveled, but, we started to just not feel like the best version of ourselves. And so when we go back and do a detox, it's like a detox and reset. We're just kind of going back to those factory settings so we can remind ourselves, oh, I do this because I feel so much better. I look so much better. I have so much more energy. I'm filled with enthusiasm and optimism because I'm feeling better, and I'm dialing down that inflammation. When we dial down that inflammation, we lose a couple of pounds, because that inflammation likes to hold on to calories and store them as fat. So a couple of times a year, I have people who take my detox twice a year. I have people who take it once a year. I have people who take it once. But what we do is we focus on getting those chemicals out. We detox from alcohol, from caffeine. We do green tea, but we detox from coffee, because that helps us work on our adrenals. We get our adrenals calmed down a little bit, because it's stressful to be a human. And then
you think
everybody gets hydrated, so they start to really understand the power of hydration as a tool that you can always use when you get off track. You can always hydrate better when you're traveling, or, I like to say, always carry a bottle in your car, because that's a really easy place to drink water. Because sometimes we're at our desks and we're like, busy, and we don't take the time to actually count those 8 to 10 sips of water an hour, because a sip is about an ounce, and that helps us get there. So we relearn how to eat the way we're supposed to eat. And I have 200 recipes at the Culinary Cure. Anybody can go to my website and get some of those recipes. You can download my list of healthy oils, my list of the bad sugars, but we always start where you are. And I like to meet people at that intersection of lifestyle and wellness. And it's not hard. It's not complicated. It's not like, you don't have to take any weird supplements. We sometimes use supplements, sometimes we don't. But it's just relearning how to eat.
And I think the detox, one of the important things, again, going back to the beginning, the 21-day detox, with you chiming in and giving people that empowerment to say, it feels good to say no to a high noon or a vodka soda or a glass of wine. And it feels great to say yes to my first and last glass of water before I go to sleep, right? Because I know I've done it all in between. And I think the structure of your 21-day detox really helps people then launch into everything else that we're talking about, right? Because it's the foundational kind of build to cleanse and then get started and feel that power.
And
I mean,
the other thing that I
I'm
think,
sorry, I'm just going to tell you one funny story before my mom passed away. My mom grew up with 17 best friends from high school, and she had this wonderful power that they all felt that they were the best friend, right? Till the day she died. She conveyed that very convincingly. But when she'd come home from lunch with them and one would complain like, oh, I need to lose 20 pounds or blah, 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 she would always say to them, put the fork down.
Yeah.
Just please put the fork down. Like you can do this if you just put the fork down, you know, and they were talking while they're eating like mac and cheese with crumbled potato chips baked on top or something, you know, extravagant. So when you said that about, you know, the power is, you know, what am I putting on my fork to fuel my body? This is the vessel I have, you know, given by whoever you believe your divine creation was. But this is what you have for the next foreseeable future.
And I just turned 65, and Jody and I really are making as many moves as we can and learning as much as we can to live healthier, better, longer, like you say. And we have the Aura ring that monitors our sleep and our exercise. And I know when I have a good day, when I get up early and I drink my water, I have my exercise, I either ride my bike or work out in the gym, I meditate, I journal, I drink water all day long, I eat right, I don't have any alcohol. If I can do that 5, 6, 7, 8, 2 weeks in a row, I feel great. When I have a heavy steak dinner, like I did this past Saturday at 8:30, because everyone wanted to eat later.
Right.
And I had a glass of wine because it was a really good bottle. And I said, well, one glass isn't going to hurt. I woke up Sunday, honestly, with a hangover and a headache, and I felt like crap all day long. And I think to myself, you know,
why did I do that?
Why did I do that? But it reminds me why I don't drink, because I don't like to feel like that. So for people that, like you said, you feel the way you feel. You don't know whether you feel shitty or not. You feel the way you feel. But to go 2 weeks and do this hydration and all of a sudden to feel different, it's only 2 weeks. To me, I'm thinking 2 weeks, do this water thing. And after 2 weeks, you're going to feel better and build on that. You don't have to get supplements. You don't have to go crazy. But I think that in itself is such a great start for everybody. Because like you said, it's free and it's a habit. Just get in the friggin' habit. I think it's a great idea.
Right. And it makes the biggest difference. All of my programs start with hydration.
Yeah.
And when we went back to the very beginning and I was hanging from the end of that rope and there was no more rope, you know, we can control what's on the end of our fork.
Yeah.
No one is holding you hostage, forcing you to eat sugary, salty, chemical added processed foods. And so when we take back that control, because there's a lot we can do, you don't need really expensive programs to help you start where you are and use what you have and do what you can to improve your wellness. Because what we do today, what we eat, our sleep is all going to show up later. So it's all about preserving the assets, right? Because we're at that point where we're trying to keep what we've got. So we can't do what we used to do because it doesn't work, right? As our bodies change, we have to do more and we have to make changes to support our body and create these habits that help us have the energy and the mental bandwidth and dial down stress so that we can do all the things that are really important for us and to us.
This was great. I think this was fascinating to hear that. And we only scratched the surface on some of the things that you talk about. So maybe would love to have you back on again at some point as well.
Yeah, and definitely we'll be posting all the links below. And thank you for the free 101 on getting everyone started, because I think that's going to be a great place for people to start.
What's one last thing you'd like to say before we say goodbye?
A good night's sleep starts the minute you wake up. So if you want to sleep better, start with that hydration, back out of the caffeine before 3 p.m, get off your phone when you get into bed, read a paper book and take a moment to be grateful for, you know, something in your life. And when you wake up the next morning, that should be your first thought. Oh my God, I am so grateful for this day.
What a fabulous ending. That was really nice. That was really sweet. Kristen, thank you so much. We so enjoyed having you on here today. And anyone has any comments or thoughts, leave it below, and we'll be back with you again soon.
Thanks, guys. I love being here.